So most models at some point are going to need UV maps, and UV maps are what we need to be able to texture a model. So in ZBrush you can easily break a model down and add a decent set of UV coordinates. So I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way in this video, and then in other videos I'll start talking to you about the new way of doing it in ZBrush with using the crease feature, so I'll mention that at the end of the video. So this is just the basic way that I do my UV maps in, or UV unwrapping in ZBrush. So we'll dive right in, and we're looking at a model here. This is a Carnotaurus. I've got lots of versions of it. I'm working on it in lots of different ways. So I've got, here's the anatomy that's being worked on. This is a posed version with a base version with the anatomy. Lots of versions, but the core body, the main body, so this bit here, needs a UV map. And I've got it laid out here in what we would call it's as neutral a pose as I could get it. So it's basically, the legs are the same, it's still in symmetry, there's no, the symmetry's not been broken. So what we want to do is have a look at it at low poly. Now, this has already been retopologized, and that was done in another program, but you can see if I do Shift and F, this is the wireframe, and this is about 5 million polys. And then I'll do Shift and D and come down a number of times, and Shift and D will lower the resolution if you've subdivided it. So I'm back down to the lowest polygon count now. So this is like a 5,000 poly model. And as you can see, because we've got Shift and F on, that's showing you the wireframe and one color for the poly group. So what we've got to do is break this down and start getting it ready to UV map it. So I want to polygroup it before I UV map it. So polygroups basically are like vertex sets. So they're groups of polygons, and you do it as simply as this. So I'm selecting that with Shift and drag. So I've masked an area, Control and W, that's now a polygroup. Now, we're not going to do it quite like that, we're going to do it a different way, but that's as simple as it can be if you want to, just do it like that. Now, you don't want these things going on here, because obviously that's a problem if you don't have loops. You need loops to be able to do loop selections, and there's loads and loads of reasons why you'd want that. So Control and W is going to send me back to one single polygroup like that. If you keep doing it, it'll just cycle through the colors. So Control and W gives you, you know, if you happen to have two colors the same, you might want to do it and do, you know, not a green next to a green, which you'll see in a minute. But what we want to do first of all is we want to split this down a little bit more logically. So I'm going to hit solo first of all here on the side, and that means the only model I'll see is the base mesh I'm working on. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and hit B, and that's for brush, and then Z down here, and you can see here you've got Z modeler. So I'm now in Z modeler. So if you hover over a face and hit spacebar, you get one panel. Hover over an edge and hit space, you get another panel. Hover over a point and hit space, you get another panel. They're basically all the same. You get like an action, a target, and a modifier. So what we want is to do face loops or groups that are in a loop. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to hover over a face like so, hold it down, and then I'm going to change the first one, the action, to polygroup, and then I want polygroup and I want a poly loop like so. Now when I do it, you can see if I go close in, you can see there's a little yellow or orange line as I move around, and that will dictate the angle. So if I have it pointing that way, it'll go that way, and it'll follow any loop around here. And if I do it this way, it'll go around this way to the top, like so. And that's what I want to do. Now, I could have gone one loop further on, but look how this basically changes here a little bit because of the way it's modeled. So it might be useful, it might not be. So you have to try it. So let me just see what would happen. Does it give me a full loop? And does it give me a nice clean edge there? Well, yes, it does. And even I can go one more. So if I go like this, see what happens, and that's even better. So that's taking it all the way down underneath like that. So I really like that. So let's find a few more. So let's find one on the belly like this. That one's good because the next one, in fact the next one might even do it. So let's try that. So Control Z, and that one goes underneath as well. So that's useful. So that's another one cleanly done. We'll split these feet with a loop for now. We're going to go a lot further than this in a minute, but we'll just see how far we get by doing this. So no, that one spirals around. So what happens there is that loop does, so I was after this loop here. Let me just make my brush smaller so it's not in your way. I thought there would be a loop here, but it isn't. It actually goes round and then it spirals off somewhere at the back here, so you've got to avoid that. So let's try the one above it, and there we go. That gives us a nice one. Maybe even this one here. That one's fine. So we've got the legs are like that. So let's do one around the hands. See how far we can go out here. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. If you notice, I've got symmetry on with X, so it's doing it fine there. I'd like a split just as it hits the chest from the neck. I want a split behind here, which is behind the head. Well, that's not worked, has it? So undo that. So that one. Yeah, that's gone all the way down, so that's working nicely. And I know for a fact that I'm going to want this mouth split, and I always put edge loops around the mouth. So that's going to work there as well. So that'll split me the mouth out nicely. I'll probably want the eye separate. That's good. I know I'll want these horns. They're good. And there are other ways of doing this, just so that you know, you can go in here and there are things in the Z plugin, for example. So you've got polygroup it, which is something you might want to try. I never really enjoyed it. I always quite like doing it manually like this. So say, for example, you've got that far, then if you do Control and Shift and click on any polygon, one group that you select will hide. Now, if you could keep clicking, Control Shift clicking, and it'll invert it, and which we'll do that in a minute. So while it's like that, what we want to do is just get used to coming down here and have a look at our poly groups, and you've got auto groups there. So if we do auto groups, all of them become separate colors. So that's quite nice. And then if we do the opposite, so Control Shift click on the body again, we'll do the body like that. And then you've got a massive set of groups to start working with now. So that's working quite well already. I'm going to change to skin shader so you see it a lot brighter. So already you can see that we're in a good place now. We're starting to get somewhere. So I'm going to start hiding and showing and seeing how I want to split this down. So for example, I want to double, like, Shift and Control and click twice, and it hides the thing I've clicked on. I want to mask these areas off, but not with rectangular mask. What I want to do is come up here, so hold Control, little square at the top here will give you access to the different ones, and you want mask lasso, and then like so. Now we are actually in perspective here, so if you hit P, perspective is off, and you want to be completely snap, you just roll around and hold Shift and it snaps exactly to the angle that you want. Or you can just come around here and hit this little icon at the top here, and that'll give you the different views. So once we've got that masked, if I do Control and W now, it'll group that one like so, which means we can carry on. So what we'll do is we'll just hide that one, and let me think, do I want to hide that one or that one? No, what I want to do is hide that one, and the tail can go for a minute, and I also want to hide that one and the arms like so, this one here, and that means we can do that entire body, so those loops can come back to that body like that. That's a nice group. The arms are now a group, the neck is now a group, so let's hide the neck like that, and then hide the face, so we wouldn't mind that mouth being all one group like so. That worked. We wouldn't mind these horns being back to one group, and the eyes being back to one group like so. So that's working rather well. And then I think just here, I wouldn't mind that being like that. Now if you want to, for example, you want this neck not to be a cylinder like that, which is a good thing, you can just come back to your masking, go back to mask rectangle, and then just draw here like this. Now with symmetry on, I got to turn symmetry off. With symmetry on, it'll do both sides, so you don't want that. So you want to go slightly over the line and then Control W, and you've got two halves, so two shells. So that's definitely a thing we can work with. So let's, for example, just do the head the same way. So we'll do that like that, and then we've got two halves, two half shells of the head. So that will work really well for this kind of model. And let's just work our way down. Now what you can do in the new way of doing this, you can do seams, which we'll talk about in a later video. And the seams you're going to do with creasing, which is what I mentioned at the start of the video. For creatures, I generally am more than happy with it done just like this. So that's, see there, I've gone slightly over the line. So what we want to do is come back again, so Control Z, take your time with this one and just make sure you're just over the line, and then it should go all the way down the two sides like that. And that means now that you've got basically half shells like this, which will unwrap much cleaner. There is an error there, look, you see I missed a bit there. So to clean that up, just go hide that piece, and that piece, and make sure, is it on that side? So that, I think it's, yeah. So what it's done is it's taken some of that other side. So we're gonna have to redo that a little bit. So the way to do that is go back in and just re-UV one side like that, or polygroup one side like that. So the head will be fine, the face is fine, these horns will be fine. Now what you can do with the horns is they may cause a problem in the end, they may not open correctly. So you could just group, say for example, the end caps like that. And in other, or in more efficient UV solutions, you can just put a seam easily on there, and obviously with the crease function now you can do it in here, but this is the ultra quick way of doing it. So we'll just hide all of those and have a look at these hands. So what we might want to do is split these hands in half. So I'm just going to have a look at how the loops run on the hand. So what we could do is, let's have a look at, hold down spacebar, polyloop is still active. And let's just see what happens if we run a polygroup around. Does it go all the way around? Yes, it does. So now what it has actually done is gone all the way around the body around here, so we don't want that. So what we want to do is make sure that we Control and hold down our Alt, and that means it's masked, inverted it, and then do it, and it won't run around the model then. So do it again, like so, and you can see there it's not gone running off around the model. So and with that done, clear the masking, and then same thing again, we'll just hide those parts, and then what we want to do is take this bit, and we want to make sure that we auto group that, so that's in two halves now. And then remember, I'm just Control Shift clicking here, so take that bit, Control Shift click on that bit, and then auto group that. So that's all good. So now when we hide the body, you can see now we can, I hit the wrong thing then, so hide that part of the body, hide that part of the body, and then we can just hide the lower part and the lower part, and that means we can group that top part of the hand and that other hand like so. So that would unwrap nicely. Now you've got top and bottom unwrap there. So the only thing to do really left to do is the feet. We didn't do much down here, did we? So one thing we can do is just hide the legs and regroup those toes. So we'll go back to mask lasso. Make sure we get all of them in, like so. Hide that foot, hide that foot, hide that toe. We'll just group them for now, and then Control W. And then what we might want to do now is we might want to do the toes separately and the top and bottom of the foot. So this is a little bit more complex. So what we'll do is we'll just slowly come in and we'll polygroup here. So we want to polygroup that. I want to polygroup that and that. And I think we turned X off, didn't we? Yeah, we turned symmetry off, so that was my fault. So we'll do that one, and that one. So that's cool. And then basically here, if we do, let's just let this auto save run. This will take a moment. So what we'll do is Control Shift click on the feet. We will auto group it, and then we'll hide that foot and that foot, and we'll group all of those toes as one like that. So that should be okay. So we'll hide the leg, the toes, and those toes there. Didn't get that loop, did we? So make sure that's included in it. And then I think we might be able to run a split all the way around the bottom of the foot. So I'm just looking at this loop to see if it goes all the way around, and whether we can catch it. So, which it looks like it does. But also what I might be able to do is just get it from the side. So I just wondered whether I could get it by doing that, which I might be able to do if it looks level, which it is. And it's done it both sides. So that's pretty much going to allow me to unwrap that foot in a nice way. The only bit that might cause a problem is that this has still got a tube at the back. So you could, in theory, split the front from the back as well, like so. So, I noticed there, just on the foot, I've managed to put an extra loop in there, which I didn't plan on doing. So I'll just hide the feet. We're nearly there now. We'll hide the bodies and that part of the body, yep, and then we'll bring that one back like so. And it might be that we run a split or a loop around here somewhere to get the back and the front of the foot split off. But what I'll do is I'll run some UVs first of all, and I'll show you what happens if you don't do that and you leave it tubular like that. I will actually just add a cap on the end of that tail like so, which will be all one piece. And that'll do it for now. That'll give us a good start, and it'll define whether there's a problem. And again, the problems coming up will be good because I'll show you what they are. So what you want to do is come over to ZPlugin, go down to down here to UV Master. We want to, it is a symmetrical model, although it doesn't look like it there actually in the corner, but we'll leave that on and see what happens. We'll do polygroups and we'll unwrap it. Now what you could do, because there's subdivision levels, what you could do is you could use work on a clone, and you'll see what happens now. So if I unwrap that like so, so it's unwrapped it and you can't see anything at all. So we could either use flatten here, which will flatten it down, or the quick one to look at is if you come up to your UV map here and you hit morph UV with a bump set to 0, it will unwrap it like that to show you. It's not doing the unwrap, it's just showing you what your unwrap looks like. Now, if you remember, the feet or the legs were a tube, but what it's done is it's taken some decisions itself and it's actually put a split where it thinks it needs it. So you can get away with it, and that wouldn't be a massive problem for me. The body looks great, 2 halves are flattened completely. The tail's 2 flattened halves, the face is 2 flattened halves. Hands are good, all the toes down, they're all over the place, so that's a little bit of a pain. So what you might want to do is move them around, and that's Control Shift click, and you can move things around as you do normally. So you've got basically you can just move things around like so on your UV map. So, and you can also, if needed, you could just mask around it like so, and then move that around. So if you want to move your pivot into the middle, just hit this little button here, and that'll bring it to the center of wherever you are. So you can move those patches around and you can scale them, you know, do all the things that you would normally do with a UV map. So there's plenty of options once you've got to this point. So if you're happy with that, if you're not happy with that, so morph it back and then go in and then isolate the problem. So for example, it could be that the problem is going to be this leg. As I said to you, that is a tube without any splits in it. So if you want to define those splits, then you can use that. And another way, just so that you know I won't do it, is you can enable control painting. And basically, where you paint red or blue will either be where the seam is attracted to or whether it's rejected. So that means you'd always paint it and try and paint a seam here underneath to hide the seams, but not a thing I use a lot of. I generally don't need it. I don't need UVs that often that are much better than this. And when I do, I go to other programs like Rhizome and Headus UV layout, or even Cinema 4D for more mechanical kind of UVs. So that's given me a more than adequate UV layout, and how I would use that now. So you can see if I do Shift and F, I'll go back to a grayish material like that. I can come over here to UV map and say 4096. That's going to make me a 4K map. What can I do with that then? Well, I've already got the high and the low res in one model here. So you're looking at the low res. So what I can do is, because it's already low res, I can capture a normal map, for example. So go to normal map and just say create normal map. Because the high and the low are in the one model and it's got a UV map, it's going to now generate you a normal map. So there you go. There's your baked normal map that can be exported and used in your, your ongoing, programs on top of this low res mesh. One thing to remember: if you do export this model, before you export it out, Control and W put it back to one polygroup, or some programs will split that into groups or even into fractures, which it isn't good. So remember, it's a rule always. There's two rules to remember here. One, Control and W as you're leaving the program with an export, and also with your maps here. If you export them like, say, clone normal map, and then that means your normal map is up here in your texture maps, you must flip it on V. It's upside down vertically, not rotate it. You must flip it vertically or it won't work for you. And that's the same for every texture map coming out of ZBrush for some reason. You can use some exporters. There are in Z plugin, there are some map exporters which will export all your maps from all your models, but that's when you're getting a bit more, a bit more convoluted and a bit more complex. So we haven't talked about creasing, and I'm going to cover that in a later video. But basically, in 2023 now, on the UV map over here, you've got a few extra options. So you've got the ability to unwrap with crease seams. So basically what you can do is, let me just clear all the seams. So if you go into geometry and crease, and then basically uncrease, or uncrease all. That means if you've got any creases, they've gone. So what you can do is you can go into BZM again. So it gives you your Z modeler, and you can hit on an edge, you can hit crease, and then you can basically define a crease. Like so. You can do full edges, you can run an edge all the way around. So this is another way to generate a UV map, and then basically you can go, you want to go from crease back to UV, and then come down here and you've got auto seams or crease seams. So you can say generate seams from creased edges and then say unwrap. And what it will do is it will generally use the creases to generate the shapes. Now that needs a whole video on its own. You can see there, this is a completely different UV map now. It hasn't respected the polygroups, but that means you can do pelt maps and you can tell ZBrush where you want your creases. So we'll cover that in another video. But even with all of these new features in 2023, I still quite like UV Master, and I still quite like the way that it polygroups it, and the way that it gives you, the group sections. So, I'm very happy with the older way of doing it, although there's plenty of new ways to do these kind of things. I hope you're enjoying these videos, and if you are, please give us a thumbs up. It does help us to get in front of other people who like this kind of content. And if you like this kind of video enough to give us a thumbs up, then why not subscribe to the channel? So we cover lots of different things, whether it be mobile sculpting with Nomad Sculpt, VR sculpting with Adobe Modeler, which realistically used to be Adobe Medium, and of course things like this, which is my main tool, ZBrush.